So in class this week, we've been looking at lower ribs, back lower ribs and front lower ribs. And I thought I would do a little video because this is kind of a little bit of a kind of numb area here. It's the part where we don't have a lot of conversation going on. So one way that you could perhaps get in touch a little bit more with your lower ribs is to use, could be a strap, could be anything that you've got, a bit of a blanket, a belt, something like that. Put it under your back, lower ribs. Keep your knees bent and just have a sense of where are your back lower ribs. What happens if you tilt your rib cage towards your knees? What happens if you tilt your rib cage towards your face? So front ribs towards your face or front ribs towards your knees. What happens with the pressure down through the ground on the strap? So there may be quite a lot of feedback here, or it may feel quite numb and there's not a lot of sensation going on. So the more we do things like this, the more we start to bring about palpable felt sensation and connect our mind to that area. Our brain needs to actually pick up that there is this part of our body, as opposed to it just being a completely numb area. Another thing that you could try is bringing your fingers around your rib cage and maybe moving around and just noticing what happens with your ribs. So essentially these are kind of very flexible parts. They're quite flexible bones. You know, they attach with cartilage, which is designed to expand and contract because of the need to do that for our breath. When we take an inhalation, we need our rib cage to move to accommodate that. So maybe just playing around with what you're feeling here. Maybe noticing as maybe the front part contracts a little bit, the back opens up more. What happens if you go side to side, kind of on diagonal lines? So just noticing with your fingers. Fingers are a great way to bring about felt sense and really connect our mind to different parts of our body. Then maybe bringing back your thumbs behind you, fingers on spanning your rib cage and rotating. So taking your front ribs forwards and up, noticing what happens behind you, and then tilting the back ribs up. So alternating between those two without it coming from the hips. So we're not bouncing around on our hips. It may be a small movement for you, it may be a much larger movement. So a felt sense of your ribs moving, your rib cage moving. And this takes a little bit of practice to really get this sense of what is here. So another thing that we were playing around with in class in the past couple of weeks was a side-to-side action. So as well as this full kind of tilting the pelvic, the rib cage this way and then melting it back, is a side-to-side movement. So it doesn't come from your hips. There will be movement through your shoulders because obviously your shoulder blades are attached to your rib cage, but we're not side bending. like this. This movement is almost like an old-fashioned typewriter, you know, where you see them in films where you push the cartridge thing across and it zings back again. So it's moving the rib cage from side to side. Obviously there's a bit of movement through the shoulders, but it's, can you actually move this from side to side, and the hips stay relatively still. There's a little bit of movement, but you're not generating it from this place, you're generating it from actually focusing on your lower ribs. That's another one you could try. Last one is diagonal lines. So taking a point at the front on the corner and taking that forwards and the opposite corresponding on a diagonal line going back. So it's a diagonal line movement. And one side may be easier than the other. You could try switching. How does that feel? What I've discovered in class is most people find this one a really complicated movement to actually feel. But once they get it, it's like, oh. And it's not that your body can't do these movements. It's just your brain having to work out what needs to move, what needs to contract and expand in order to move those parts of your body. So have a little play, maybe. I found it fascinating. The more that I've done this, the more in touch I've got with the whole of this area, which is a key part, you know, linked to our breathing, our stability, how we hold ourselves. There's so much that needs to happen around mobility with our rib cage. Okay, bye.